Good morning, and welcome to episode 5 of Dr. P TV. I'm your host, Dr. Pete. Today I want to talk to you about how to beat the pharmaceutical industry at their own game. I want to show you how your body's built, how it's created, and how it heals itself. But in order to do that, we're going to talk first and foremost about how a human is created. So we've got the sperm and the egg. I think we all know that. And in the egg, there's a half a strip or one strip of DNA. In the sperm, there's also one strip of DNA. And when the two come together, like this picture here, this is conception. This is amazing. I actually love this photograph. Basically, you take the sperm and the egg, they come together, and each of them takes a strand, a single strand of DNA, one from the mom, one from the father, and it comes together as a single strand of DNA. That's what you see here. It's like DNA is like a ladder. It's got these little base pairs. And just for the science people out there, you have adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanosine, A, T, C, G. All these little connections in your DNA come together to create this giant helix of a double helix. That's what makes that original cell, the first cell of your life. Had your mother and your father's DNA come together, wrap around each other, and then create a double helix. That's your DNA, and you will carry that for the rest of your life. Now, that first individual cell, it's going to divide into a second cell. So now you got two. Those two will divide into 4, which will divide into 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, you get it? And by the time you're born, you've got about 50 trillion cells inside your body that make you up. And in reality, you are nothing but cells. Just a whole bunch of them all come together to make you who you are. Your skin, your bone, your eyes, your organs, your intestines, everything is nothing more than a collection of cells. And inside of every cell is a nucleus. And inside that nucleus is where your DNA lives. Now, to make it quick and easy, that's what your drug company is looking to target with their drugs. They want to go inside your DNA, mess around with some of the DNA sequences, and hope that your body gives a different response than the one it had prior to taking the medication. But if you don't want to take the medication, then why not just heal on your own? I'll bet when you're at home and you have a small injury, you get a cut on your leg or something, what do you do with it? Do you call the doctor and say, geez, I got a cut on my leg, I need you to fix me? No. You clean it out, you put a Band-Aid on it, and a couple weeks later, it's completely healed. Well, who heals it? Your body heals it. Your body knows what to do to heal it. And how does it know what to do? Well, that kind of comes back to the DNA in the cell itself. Will it be able to help you to repair and to heal yourself? Sure will. Drug companies say, hey, there's a problem in there, so we'll fix it for you. But in reality, DNA let's just say in America today, you have about 2% of the population out there that truly have damaged genes. Genetically, they're inferior as a consequence of some altered gene sequence. There are certain diseases that come with that. We can call it Tay-Sachs disease, Friedreich's ataxia, not multiple sclerosis, spit it out, Pete, Huntington's chorea, Down syndrome. You see, these are problems in that genetic sequence. But the vast majority of us, 98% of us, do not have any damage in our genetic system. We just don't. What we do, though, is have poor genetic expression. So I want you to know this first and foremost about your genes. I'll talk about me, right? You know, my mom is Swedish, my father's Italian. So when you look at me, I am a reflection of both of my parents. The jawline, the hairline, eye color, you know, facial morphology, my height, everything is based upon the development of this body at the beginning of my life by DNA consistently replicating over and over, creating new cells to create me. We call this the genome. You know it as home as he looks just like you, your son, for instance. Oh, he looks just like you, doctor. And my daughter looks just like my wife. You know, why do we look like our parents? Because it's their DNA that influences us to develop a certain genotype. I am a Percoco. I'm one of 8 children. We all have similarities in the way we physically look. And that's where it all ends. You see, that's the genome. But there's another significant piece of the puzzle here that's missing, that no one's really talking about in the media, in the social media, and the scientists don't want to let it out too far because they're linked to the drug companies who provide them with the revenue it takes to get grants to create more medications. So instead of the gene and the genotype, your genetics, running the show, let me tell you how it really works. It runs on epigenetics, the expressions of those genes. Now you go, okay, doc, you're right at the very edge. You're just about to lose me. Hold on, because what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go to my whiteboard, and then I want to show you what a cell looks like and how it operates. And remember, this is important because you're nothing more than 50 trillion cells. So if I want to know who you are, how you work, and how to help you heal, then I need to go under the microscope and look at that individual cell to see how it works. That will illuminate whatever we need to do in the future to make ourselves healthy. So hang on, I'm going to go to the board. I'm going to start drawing. Okay, so I apologize being off at an off angle, but the light that I use sometimes shows up as a reflection on the board, so I had to come in at an angle. All right, so let me just take a cell. I want to talk about a cell. This is the subunit of actually who you are. So here's your cell. The first thing that we know about the cell is it has a perimeter. We call it a skin, also known as a membrane. You have a cell membrane. Now, off of every cell membrane, there are these little satellite dishes, if you will. And each of these satellite dishes are called receptors, and they are receptive to what's going on around the cell. Now, I'll just throw a few more in to kind of balance it off here. So inside the middle of your cell is a nucleus. I'm going to show you a little DNA sequence in here. That's where the DNA lives, inside the nucleus. What does that DNA do? The DNA's job is to make proteins. The DNA's job is to make proteins. What does that mean, Doc? It means that all proteins inside the cell are really running the show. They run the internal dynamics of the cell. They allow it to breathe, to poop, to build energy, to become active. Proteins run the show, and we need the nucleus to create the proteins. Now, here's the thing that drug companies want you to believe, that the genes turn off and on by themselves because the brain of the cell is the nucleus. But that's not accurate. That's absolutely not what's happening. The nucleus is not the brain of the cell. The nucleus is nothing more than a cookbook filled with recipes to make a whole bunch of different types of proteins. But like any good cook, you just can't allow the book itself. The cookbook doesn't do anything except give you the damn recipe. You still need a cook. Somebody's got to assemble it and put it all together. Okay, so you've heard that, oh, well, it's a genetic problem. Everybody's got it, or I have this genetic problem. It's in my genes. Careful. You are not. Guarantee you this scientifically. You are not a slave to what your genes are. I don't care if you're an interracial marriage, and you say, well, that's just my genes, that's the way it goes. No, it is not. It is not. It never works that way. The genes themselves are not calling the shots. They do not do that. They simply make proteins. You think about Aladdin and the lamp. You rub the lamp and out he comes the genie and he says, what can I do for you? What are your wishes? Same thing here. The nucleus is like the lantern. Or the cell is the lantern. You rub it and the nucleus says, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to create? So how does the nucleus get its message? It gets it by these receptors all around the outside of the cell. They're receptive to the outside of the cell itself. So let's throw something on the outside of the cell and call it, I'm going to put a big G here for glucose. And what is glucose? It's an energy molecule, or it produces energy. It's basically the sugar that gets to the cell so the cell can make energy. So how does that happen? Glucose comes along, binds to a receptor. Now the receptor says, oh, Mr. Glucose is in the environment. Hey, now that the receptor is activated from the glucose, it then tells the nucleus to create a special protein that allows this cell to function, yay, beautifully, number one, and to create energy. That's its job. Yay. Now, let's send in alcohol. Alcohol gets to the cell, it binds to the receptor. The receptor then tells the nucleus, hey, I got a toxin out here. We need to just retract, close down, and let's protect. Well, that's not what we want it because we need it, but that's not the way to flourish. So when you put an alcohol into the system, alcohol activates the genetic sequence because it tells the DNA what to do through the receptor, which makes proteins. Proteins. Listen, how can you actually test this, that the nucleus is not the brain of the cell? Well, scientists did this. They took the nucleus and they removed it from some cells, and the cells lived for 60 days. How come? They already had a bunch of proteins sitting in the middle of the cell. They had a whole bunch. But like an old pair of shoes, they wear out after a while, right? So the amount of proteins in the cell begin to break down slowly over time, and then the cell is going to die at that point. But that took 60 days because you were running out of proteins. But in the first week, my God, without the nucleus, the cells did everything it normally does. It does everything it normally does, which means you do everything you normally do until you actually till you run out of the protein production. So this is how humans work, right? We simply are a receptive creature that's picking up signals from the environment. Now, let me put this into simple terms that your grandmother told you, that if you hang out with the idiots, you're likely to become one. That means that the environment that you're in actually controls the expression of your DNA. And your DNA is running the cell, and the cells are made of you. So you are nothing more than the expression of your DNA every day of your life. Now remember, the first genome, it looks at Prococo and says, well, he's 5'10", he's got these certain facial features. That's the original connection of my genes, the original one when I was born. All my cells express this. But now, whether I get fat, whether I stay thin, whether I build muscle, whether I get an education, no matter how I speak, what my dialect is, how many languages I get, these are all based upon the stimulation that you get from your environment. Listen, I live in the Northeast United States. People call me a masshole across the country from the way I speak. I party, I go to Harvard, I ate pizza, my wife Lisa. We have these weird ways of saying things. But if I was from the South, from Mississippi, y'all be talking like this. What the hell's the difference? The difference is this: the environment that you were in created signals along the perimeter of the cell, which activated the nucleus, which made proteins, which changed the function of this cell, or should I say, directed the function of this cell. And that's 1 of 50 trillion. Now, if I add up, 70 million of these and I put them in the side of your brain and I keep stimulating them with a southern drawl, the next thing you know, you respond and you start talking with a southern drawl. That's the way it works. Sorry if you're from the South listening to me, I'm terrible at that, but it doesn't matter. So recognizing that humans are nothing more, will become nothing more than the environment that they're in. That's how it goes. So if you're in a crap environment, the reality is you're going to make proteins that reflect that through the nucleus, which is basically being activated by the receptors that are picking up stuff in the environment. This is the cellular dynamics of how humans truly work. And remember, the drug company wants you to believe that your DNA is broken. It's broken, it's damaged. And as a machine, Mr. Human, you're a mess. So we're going to come in and we're going to put in drugs inside your nucleus and repair it for you because it must be damaged, because everything seems like it's not working right, because you have high blood pressure, because you got high cholesterol, because you got a pain in your leg. You see, they just keep throwing this stuff at you, trying to help you, trying to force you to believe that your problem is genetic and that there's damage and there's no reason trying to fight it because there's no way around it. The only way out is for us to throw drugs at that nucleus and try to assemble certain nucleuses, certain proteins to make you better. But in reality, that's not how humans work. That's not how we're supposed to work. Now, can you use medication to do that in certain cases? Of course. But for high blood pressure, what causes high blood pressure? Really? Name one kid that's got high blood pressure at 10 years old that doesn't have some major abnormality going on. None of them. Why not? Their lifestyles are different than adults. They don't have the same brain frequency. They don't worry the same. They have someone caring for them. They like ice cream and hot dogs and baseball or whatever it is, even on the female side, if you're not into that particularly, but it doesn't matter. The reality is just this, that what you see in your environment is the key. The environment dictates the activation of the cells and the activation of you. You know this as a vacation. Just simply go on vacation, right? and spend a week in the Bahamas, especially now, it's February up here in Boston, it's cold and crappy out. 1 week in the Bahamas, holy moly, nothing seems to hurt. What's going on? The environment is completely different. You're under the sun, it's warm, you're relaxed, hopefully with someone you love. All these things are going on around the cell. The nucleus is producing these amazing chemicals through, proteins, which just run that cell into a blissful state instead of a crisis state where it wants to kill itself, right? That's what we want to do. So the drug company wants to fight it with medication, and I want to teach you how to activate your environment that much better. Remember, sitting on the couch, eating ice cream, making no movements, your environment is like a cocoon. And as a consequence of that, you will make proteins in your cells because your nucleus is receiving signals from the outside. And your outside signal is lethargy, sitting on a couch, doing nothing. But what happens if a guy gets up or a girl gets up and decides to go work out every day? Every day that he or she is out there working out, she's in a new environment. And he or she is activating her system, putting in lots of beautiful stimulations in the environment, which turn the DNA on and ask it to please make proteins which make us work better so we can heal, so we can replicate, so we can poop, so we can breathe, so we can make energy. That's how this whole damn thing works. And of course, after I just said all this, the question is, can you actually change the environment around the cell with diet? Of course. With exercise? Of course. With all these things that you know to be true, right? They all work and they all have tremendous effects on the way the DNA is being stimulated. You are not a prisoner to this DNA. It is not fixed and that you're screwed for life. It's sitting there waiting for you to just turn it on in ways that provide proteins which make the cells better. So I'm gonna cut you off today. And what I want you to do is tune into the second one of this, because I'm going to do the other piece of this, and it's going to be about how do we change that environment? What can we do with this environment to make it better? And can I use just my brain itself? Can I just think in new patterns, in new ways, and create a different environment around that cell? And will that cell respond to that environment? And what will that do to my overall health? And will that allow me to avoid medication? Okay, so episode 1 of, should I say this is episode 5, but this is the first of maybe 2 or 3 of these. So I hope you'll tune into the next one. I'll see you soon, episode 2 of this particular topic on Dr. P TV.